My name is Antti Kirshner. I've been at the Biodesign Center for 5.5 years now, supporting the fellowship director, Megan Stawicki, in her role managing the fellowship. So you've probably heard from her already over the past few months. She's out on a family matter, so I'm stepping in to help manage the webinar and hope you all have an informative session. Janine, over to you.
Thanks, Ante. I'm Janine Furch. I'm one of the assistant directors of the Innovation Fellowship. I'm also an alumni. I did the fellowship from 16 to 17, have started some companies out of it, and then also really focused in neonatology. I'm a neonatologist at Stanford, and then also really focus on pediatric innovation as well. Over to you, Dan.
All right. Well, thanks, Janine. Thanks, Antia, for helping set all this up, and very nice to, I guess, not meet you all yet, but to have you all here. My name is Dan Azaguri. I'm the director for the fellowship. Just like Janine and a lot of the faculty you will get to meet over these different webinars. I'm also an alumni of the fellowship. I did the fellowship 14 years ago now. Also took the learnings of the fellowship and applied it, and was able to put it into practice, start a company out of our biodesign project. I split my life on one half. I'm a surgeon. I run our minimally invasive and bariatric weight loss group here at Stanford. And the other half, I run the fellowship. So our goal for today is to sort of walk you through what to expect from a fellowship year. We will try to answer questions as we go through the chat. Yeah, hopefully we give you a good sense of what to expect. So starting most importantly with our purpose and our values, the Biodesign program is a entity whose goal is to advance health outcomes and equity through innovation, education, translation, and policy. Obviously, the innovation and education part are the core aspects of the fellowship, and our values are collaboration, innovation, diversity, integrity, empathy, and leadership. And the program is a teaching program. Our goal is not to develop technologies, but developing technologies is kind of a side product of the teaching. So if you learn something that works well, there's a good chance that you're going to be able to take it forward, and that those technologies now in the real world would help patients. And we're at 13 million patients helped by the technologies invented purely during the fellowship. So this doesn't take into account the number of companies that people have started after the fellowship. This is purely from the fellowship. So it's a pretty amazing outcome for a fellowship that's about 22 years old now. So I'll tell you a little bit about our center, how we teach. Janine will walk you through the fellowship, and then we'll have some time at the end for Q&A. So the first aspect, you're all here because you're thinking about applying. And what we do is we recruit teams of people. We build teams through this sort of cornerstone approach. The cornerstone historically is a stone that was placed oftentimes as the first foundation stone of a building. It would be at the corner of the building, and it would symbolize the seeds from which this building would grow and arise. And so I think it's a great analogy to you all. When we recruit fellows, we recruit fellows with that sort of cornerstone in mind, with each person being one of the cornerstones of the team. And this is reflected sort of geographically. Biodesign is right in the middle of on the Stanford campus between the School of Medicine, Engineering, Design, and Business. So our goal is sort of to replicate that as much as possible in the teams. Our goal is to build teams that have the broadest possible skill set, and not to have, 4 people on the team who all have the same background, the same history, the same expertise. The goal is really to broaden the ability of the team to develop new things and be creative by having the broadest possible skills. And so that's why you will see that when we're looking at who we recruit, there isn't one specific phenotype of person we're looking for. And so we build these teams. Typically, we'll have at least one physician on each team. We'll have at least one engineer on each team. And then the more skill sets, the more things you bring, unique things you bring to the team, the better. And that can be, through your personal journey, through your clinical expertise, your technical expertise, anything brings sort of richness to the team. And that's what we're trying to do, because you will talk about the faculty and the teaching process, but one of the best aspects of the fellowship is you will learn from the other people on the team and on the team of 12 fellows that are your cohort for the year. You will learn so much from them. And so having them have a different skill set is exactly what we're looking for to enrich your experience. And once we have the team assembled, our goal is to teach you a need-driven method to develop new technologies in healthcare. So what happens when we have the cornerstones assembled? Then this is the approach that we use. So this is the typical design thinking approach. Started here at the D School, where the idea is to do some immersion, understand the need, ideate, prototype, and test. And so we've tweaked it a little bit where the observation part is the clinical immersion, so where you spend time in the hospital, and then you identify the needs. Then you sort through the needs to prototype and test. And the reason it needs to be changed is that in healthcare, you don't have one single user that you're observing. You have this multitude of stakeholders that you need to satisfy if you want to take a technology or a device or a drug to market. And you have to understand those from the get-go in order to be able to navigate that and select the needs for those who have the highest chance of making it through that entire process. So here's our biodesign innovation process. You will hear this hundreds of times probably throughout the fellowship year. And it has 3 phases: identify, invent, and implement. The first 2 are the ones that we really focus on during the fellowship. Implementation is something we plan for, but it's not really something you do in the fellowship. Implementing is something that will take years and that will be happening after you graduate. And so we're currently at 57 companies that have been started by alumni of the fellowship. And so I think what that shows is that the process actually works. And that if I came into the fellowship with a clinical expertise, a passion for innovation, but no real knowledge about innovation at all. And so if you can take somebody like me and teach me how to do this, and I can start a company that is successful, you can do it with anybody. So really the process works. And the key to our success is mentorship. We have the amazing privilege of being surrounded by hundreds and hundreds of mentors who have done this before, who have, again, an incredibly wide array of expertise to share with you, and who participate in the fellowship at different levels. So First, we start with our what we call our ops team. You've met Antje earlier. As she mentioned, Megan is unfortunately out today for a family emergency, but she is the fellowship's manager. She will, she is the one who's going to be in contact with you before interviews, around selection, and then during the entire year. She sort of runs everything. All of the day-to-day is run by Megan. Lynn is the director of all the academic programs, and her and I work together closely around the plan for the fellowship. And then, as I mentioned, we build 3 teams of 4 people. So we have 12 spots for the year, and each team gets a assistant director. So Emma Essak-Burns, Janine, who is you've met, and Vic McRae are the 3 assistant directors. They each have very different, very different skill sets. Janine is a neonatologist. Vic is a surgeon turned entrepreneur. Emma is a PhD who focuses on sort of on the go-to-market strategy and has experience in upstream marketing. So you get a different sort of flavor of mentoring from each one of your assistant directors. And then critically important is Doug. He's our team shrink. He is the person who will help the team create its own sort of personality, how the team is going to work. This is critical because we build flat teams. We take people like yourselves who are incredibly talented, intelligent, and driven, and then we put them on a team where there's no boss, no leader, nobody to tell you sort of how to work as a team. Each one of the 4 people on the team has the exact same sort of weight and role. And so in order to help you navigate what that looks like, Doug will meet with you on a regular basis in order to help the team, get the best out of their year and their team experience. And then we have a broader faculty that helps teach what we call our verticals. So Gordon and Uday are focused on implementation. Jan and Veronique teach value, which is an incredibly important component of the fellowship around how do we understand the value that those innovations are going to bring to society, and how do you measure that so that there is a cost effectiveness to the solution that you're bringing that allows for the solution to be accessible by the broadest possible patient population. There's obviously engineering and design is a huge component of this, and Ross and Farzad run that aspect. And then we have our focus areas. And so Ryan Van Wert and Oliver Alami run our digital health sort of leadership and will help the teams learn more and focus on digital health. Michael has an expertise in biotech and runs our biotech component, and Cyan and Krista run our health equity focus. Cyan is on the call, so you can also, she will answer some of the questions. She's also an alumni of the fellowship, and will be closely involved with you guys as fellows. We have a global faculty. We have multiple programs around the world that have started with the help of this program, and who have gone on to be independent programs. And so our global faculty has experience across the world, whether it's Japan, India, Singapore, East Africa. So Raj, Krista, Fumi, Ritu, Anurag, and Chris are the folks who give you that sort of international lens. And then we have industry mentors. So this is a learning by doing. And so we don't give you a project. We don't tell you what you should be working on. You figure it all out, and you therefore are, sort of mimicking what you would be doing in the real world. And in that way, you want some real world mentors who have been CEOs themselves of startup companies to tell you what it would really take to get this off the ground. And so Hansen, Bev, Deb, and Maria are all incredibly accomplished CEOs who will donate some of their time to mentor each team and help you, make your projects better. I won't have time to introduce all of our fantastic staff, but obviously there's a huge amount of support that comes into the fellowship to help you, get here, get a paycheck, get a visa, and all those things. So there's an amazing crew that helps support the fellowship. These are our current fellows who just, for those of you who haven't seen, you can go to LinkedIn and see a little bit of their final presentation that was last week. And so, as you can see, we have a broad group of skills from Sophia, for example, is a nurse. We have physicians from every specialties. We have Bingy, who's a scientist. We have mechanical engineers, PhDs, so really a broad array of skill sets represented, and a broad array of geographies as well. Obviously, some folks are from the US. Jens is from Germany, Ivana and Joan from Spain. So we have some sort of broad representation. And I'll head it over to Janine to give you some more details about what the year looks like.
Thanks, Dan. I'm frantically typing all of these great questions that are in the Q&A, so keep them coming. A lot of them will be similar, and we'll have others responding as well, and we'll have plenty of time at the end to go through some of these. The ones that we'll try to answer live are the more general questions. If you have really specific ones, then we can go through those. I just want to take a minute to say, there's a lot of people that are going to ask, this is my specific situation. Is it okay if I apply? And just want to give kind of a blanket answer there. This isn't, and to highlight some things that I'm seeing coming up, this is an in-person fellowship. This is not a remote fellowship. This is full-time. Full-time means this is more than a 9-to-5 commitment. This is a 10-month process where you're in the Bay Area, in the US, fully 100% committed to a in-person fellowship. Any country that you're a part of or you have citizenship of is welcome to apply, as long as you have the ability to work and be in the US. We work through visas. We do that. We just have to have a visa that's able to be in the US, and we'll work through that on a specific case-by-case basis. People are asking about international applicants. Usually about half of our applicants are international, and usually half of our fellows are as well. So let's just get some of those things off the plate so that you don't have to write all of those in there as well. We will have plenty of time for these discussions as well. So highlighting this, biodesign experience is in person, like I said, Bay Area, 10 months. So we spend the first month, and it's really exciting. So you come to the Bay Area, you meet all your other fellows, and you actually are in a boot camp for a whole month. So we think that this process, you really need to learn with multiple reps. So this is your first rep. We do a really fast breeze through the entire process so you know what the year is going to look like. And that's why it's called boot camp. So after that, we let you know what area of focus is going to be. So I noticed some of the questions as well were, hey, can I apply with a team? Can I do that? This is for individuals only. We then create the team. You do not have a project coming in, and you do not have an area of focus. So then we give an area of focus, which is a clinical department that we're partnering with, both at Stanford, but then at also other surrounding hospitals to give a more diverse experience, including Stanford General, or community hospital like El Camino Hospital, and then outside hospital settings as well, community settings. You find out what that specific target area is within the first week of your fellowship and who your teammates will be at that time as well. So you will not know that ahead of time. I will tell you, and I'm just going to give a little aside here, that it does not matter what the area is. It's an area for a launching off point, and then you can explore any area you want, but it actually helps to not be in your area of specific focus. I always thought it was harder to innovate in my own area than in others when you're first learning this process, and to be really diligent about it. So throwing that out there. Then after this boot camp, we go on to clinical immersion. So next slide. So when we go clinical immersion, it's usually around 4 weeks or so where you're fully immersed in all of those places that I mentioned, the community sites, Stanford Hospital, San Francisco General, as well as community sites like El Camino Hospital. And you can go anywhere in the hospital or clinic that you can get access to. And people really open the doors up for us. And the reason they do that is because they want you in those spaces. They want you to see what's going on. And this can be a really exciting time for both physicians and entrepreneurs and people who haven't been in this space before, who may have a different background. The reason is I found it so interesting because what I see every day is not necessarily what goes on in the rest of the hospital. So you can really start to see differences there. And when you're partnered up with an engineer, they just see things differently. So from the physician side of things, it was really nice to have them say, but why do you do it that way? And sometimes the answer is, well, we've just always done it that way. But then that should be a red flag to say, okay, well, let's think about why. Is that really working for us? So it's great to have that paired ability between people who are clinically focused and people who are not clinically focused. Next. So then once we do that, you come up with tons of needs. And so the way that we categorize our need statements, we take our observations and we put them into need statements. And they involve including a problem, a population, and outcome, and it's extremely patient focused. So it comes up to sound like a way to, like a problem in a population in order to affect an outcome. And when the fellows do this, they come up with sometimes hundreds of needs, sometimes just 100. Depends more on the quality rather than the quantity. Next. And so you can see some of these needs. These needs were from quite a while ago, but they ended up with a really interesting solution. But again, some needs are more valuable than others. Next. And we go on to needs validation. So you can have need statements because it might have been something that you saw once, but you need to make sure that that's happening on a repeatable process. And is that happening with a lot of different people, or is that just happening in the small subset of the case that you saw? So we do a lot of research and filtering. A lot of that happens on the computer. That can use, our fellows are using AI to help with this as well. And it's going back and talking to people that aren't just the clinicians that you might have seen that with, but everybody that surrounds that. Talk to the payers, talk to the nurses, talk to the other ancillary staff as well, and figure out how this is all sort of coming together. And as we go through those, we start to narrow our needs. So you may have a lot of needs. So say you start with 100 because it's an easy number to say, and you start with all this top level data. So the really quick, easy stuff. Now, one thing with the process is we will ask you to cut down. So then they have to cut down to 50 needs. And they don't have enough information to be able to do this. No one ever does. So we will probably leave good needs behind. But you're allowing them to compete against each other, which is a real benefit of the process. So then you get more and more data and a little bit more convinced, and you cut down. And you get down to less, then you have more diligence, more criteria, and you're probably going back and interviewing people and talking to them and really trying to explore what the true problem is and what you can potentially really affect. Then when we get down and we filter down to about 8 needs, we start doing brainstorming and concept development. Now, this whole time before this, we're not talking about solutions at all. And this can be somewhat frustrating for people, but it is certainly a very important part of the process and the diligence that you develop. So this whole time, we're just understanding the need. then the solution actually comes quite easily. So then some of them have better solutions than others, and some of them fall out for various reasons. And we ultimately get down to one need, but on this slide, we're at 4 right now, and we filter down, and then we use additional filters to be able to get further. So then we start putting on additional filters like intellectual property, reimbursement, regulatory, business model, etc. Next slide. So as we're starting to validate, we do a lot of background research. Some of the background research includes looking at the market size. So how big of an opportunity is it? I like to think about market opportunity because it's not always the size, but it's the size, the competition in the space, the ability to really affect change, and what your impact is potentially going to be. Look and see out there, what's the treatment landscape? Is everything out there like almost meeting the need, or are they really far off? Is there a lot of things out there, or is there just nothing for these patients? And then what's really the patient impact? That's the most important part. How are you really changing things? Are you saving lives? Are you making something incrementally better? Are you improving a quality of life? What are you actually trying to affect? Next. And then, of course, we get to brainstorming and prototyping, which is most people's favorite part, where the sticky notes come out and the creative juices really fly. So our teams are able to do this on a smaller number of needs, because you certainly couldn't do it on a huge number of needs that you don't truly understand. And they come up with amazingly creative solutions. And so we partner sometimes with our design school to help us learn how to do this. We have wonderful directors of design and lots of support in this area as well. And then when we talk about prototyping, we have specific engineers that come into the program, are also extremely helpful with prototyping and trying to come up with looks like, feels like, really put things in people's hands so they can start to see. And that could be a physical device. That could be prototyping a digital device, or that could be prototyping something that's engineerable biotech. So we do all of those. Sometimes it actually comes up and it's a process change, or it's a systems level issue. And you can apply the biodesign process to that as well. Then we go to concept validation. So you've started to already look at this market size, treatment landscape, patient impact, and you start to bring in, okay, well, what's the market pathway? So is this a regulatory pathway that's going to take 10 plus years, and as a PMA, can the need actually support that? Or is this a class 1 device that you can get through the FDA? You don't even have to get clearance on. Where are you kind of at there? And what are the risk profiles? What's the payer impact? So reimbursement and payers are a huge, huge issue in the United States, and it's a very convoluted one if you're not familiar. And there's a lot of interesting and hidden incentives as well. So understanding the payer landscape can be very valuable to understanding what could be successful and what may need a lot more time to be able to be successful, and you might not have as good of a chance. And then, of course, intellectual property is often important for some of our solutions, certainly not all of them, but it's all about building the moat around your solution so that you can then have the best chance of it getting to patients and building a sustainable business. When we look at concept screening, we also look at a couple different areas. This is the type of risk strategy that I like. So green, yellow, red, green being that's very achievable, yellow being we think that's achievable and it shouldn't take too much effort, and red being either we're really uncertain or this is a really big risk that we need to de-risk first. So here you can see that feasibility of the technology isn't an issue. Can get access to people on campus, which is a huge part of biodesign. We certainly have access to, you can contact anyone on the Stanford campus, and oftentimes they will write back and you can find the expert in the area that you're looking for. Also, green is regulatory. It's a straightforward 510K pathway in this circumstance. And for reimbursement, there's existing codes that you can bill on, and you don't have to come up with a new code. And they're saying, well, business model, well, maybe like there's moderate risk given the existing model. So they'll want to spend some time trying to de-risk that. But the biggest risk is around IP and freedom to operate in this one specific circumstance with a saturated IP landscape. So they're going to want to de-risk that first. So not necessarily spending time on the the technological area, which may be the most attractive and the easiest, because that already exists and it's not going to be the killer risk. So trying to streamline this process, really figure out what's going to be the killer risks, and either cutting the need or trying to decrease the risk before going forward. So our fellows come up with a really good need, usually a risk screening, some prototypes by the end of the fellowship. And then where our fellows are right now is they go on to externship. So this is one of the most creative, interesting parts of the fellowship. So it's a customization period. Every fellow gets to decide where they want to go, and they go by themselves, typically. And they gain experience in different areas of interest. So some of them use it to find jobs in the future. Some of them use it to explore areas that they've never explored before. Some of them say, hey, actually, I really want to go do clinical immersion because I never get to do that, and I want to go back or work on their project. But most do something really interesting, whether going to a venture capital firm in the US or abroad. We've had fellows work in almost on every single continent during this time period, and it's a 4 or 5 week process that they work for free for these companies. We still pay them during this time their salary, and they just get to explore something different, which can be transformative and has definitely led to jobs after the fellowship as well. So then we start to think about when our fellows come back from externship, there's about a week around graduation where we really focus in, and we have little boot camps each time. So we have the big boot camp in the beginning, and then we have individual boot camps as we go along. And the last one is really around implementation. So this is, how do you take this forward? They've already come up with a basic plan around these things, but to start to really drill this down, how do you start a company if you're going to start one? How do you really do market validation and testing, and then actually plan your clinical trial, whether that's you have to do animal work before or not. Sometimes it's building your app, building your digital solution, if that's what you need to do. And how do you actually commercialize? So how do you actually get what's in your head or what's in your small prototypes and realistically reach patients? And in what time frame and amount of money is that going to cost? And so we help people come up with that plan and just understand it in general, because it's certainly an area that you can't experience within a year. This is what companies do for many years going forward. Next. And I will say there's no shortage of fun of this fellowship. They work really hard. We expect that. We expect it to be more than a 9 to 5 commitment. And I know I've said that multiple times, but we really mean that. You give your all for 10.5 months that you're here. And giving your all also means that you have a tremendous amount of fun. There's pizza parties, there's retreats that they go on, that you have individual teams, but the team of 12 really sticks with you for life. And I think Dan and I would both agree that we are still very, very close friends with many, many of the individuals within our fellowship as well. So there is certainly no shortage of fun. What I want to bring up, and this is a really important slide, so if you've only sort of been listening, please pay attention to this slide. There, you need to download the application, so I'd encourage you all to apply. Download the application because you never know if you don't apply. And even if you've applied before, it might be the time to do that again. We pay really close attention to reapplications and give it, a double review, especially if you've applied before. So create a slide room account as soon as you can. And think about who your letter writers will be. Everything opens today, so you can log in today and get started. Today is May 5th, and it's ending a little bit sooner than we have in the past. So just make note of that everything is due before July 28th. If you submit it after, we will not look at it. If you're letter writers and you don't have 3 letters in by July 28th, we will not look at your application. There's always people that want exceptions and things like that, but we're giving you all of this time, all of May, June, and July to get this done. So send it early and often, and make sure that you log in. It's not a simple application. You certainly need several days to think about it and to put the pieces together and get those letters in. So we encourage you to apply, and we're really excited to turn it over to our Q&A now, I believe, so that we can continue this discussion.
All right.
Oh, and I will say for the last slide, we always talk about companies, but we really, really mean that we're talking about growing the next generation of innovators. So not everybody starts a company, and that is totally fine. We really want you to learn this process so that you can use it in whatever capacity that you happen to do that in. And sometimes that's going back and working for a big company, or working for a startup, or going back to clinical work and thinking about problems differently. So there's many, many different ways. And I'm sure that will be one of the questions that we start to address during our Q&A session. But I'll turn it back over to Dan.
All right. Well, thanks, Janine, and thank you all for the rapid fire questioning as we try to keep up with the questions. So let's see. Maybe we can take one at a time. In the ones that we said we would answer live. Are the applications of the biodesign concepts limited to biotechnology and medical devices, or can they be extended to broader aspects of public health innovation as well? So typically, this is a fellowship that is focused on either technology solutions, device solutions, biotech solutions, not typically focused on processes. There are other fellowships that are actually on campus as well for folks who are more focused on that. There's also a policy group within Stanford Biodesign who is focused on sort of policy research in particular. But the focus of the fellowship is around sort of health tech in general, solutions including biotech, digital, and devices. All right, so
I'm seeing one around like, I'm a clinician, but I don't have any experience with leadership or with innovation. Would you still consider my application? I wrote back on that one, but I think you need to think about you don't have to have all aspects, don't have to be super stellar, but we are looking people who are genuinely curious, interested, and want to learn more. You might not have tons of experience with innovation, but you may have run clinical trials, or you may have published tons of papers, or you may have patents, and all of those are creativity. Those are along those lines. Certainly, if you've gotten to the point where you're a clinician, you probably have more leadership than you are considering right now. You certainly are probably leading teams. You might not have taken a specific leadership course, which is not what we're looking for, but we're looking for examples of leadership there. So hopefully that answers that for a broader number of you.
another one that comes up is, what are the career opportunities after fellowship? So after fellowship, as we mentioned, you will, first of all, you go to externship first, and then that gives you a sense of potential job opportunities. In general, people have gone different ways. You either participate in a startup in one way, shape, or form. Doesn't mean that you're the CEO of a startup, but you can, or you can have a group that 2 to 3 fellows who get together and start a company together. You can go to a large company and foster innovation there, and there's a large group of fellows who have done that in different ways, shapes, or forms. You can obviously go to anything in between, smaller size companies. You can go back to academia and work on innovation in an academic setting, in a university setting, either in the US or abroad. What am I missing, Janine, in terms of other types of careers?
It's anything you can think of, honestly. It helps you expand in every which direction. And sometimes it's not what you expect.
Let's see, other questions. In what ways does the Stanford Biodesign Fellowship foster networking with industry professionals? So that's a big component of the fellowship, honestly. There's a lot of opportunities to do that. There's some structured ones. So, for example, all of our Biodesign sponsors will come in and talk to you. So we have actual sponsor meetings that are scheduled, and you'll have somebody from a VC firm or somebody from who's a leader in their industry to come and talk to you and just start to network that way. We have a fantastic alumni association called SBAA, which is a very, very close, tight network. And they will have events throughout the year for you to meet all of the past alumni. I would say that is the first sort of the first layer of networking that you'll have. The strongest one that you will have is through the alumni. As you can tell from the picture, every year at graduation, we have all the alumni from the program come back, and it's a really fun event. And they're all working in the same field, and so you get a huge network from that too.
Okay, I think this is one that we should definitely highlight. So can you touch on, so I put a lot in the answers, like required real world experience. What's the usual background of applicants? This is always one. So young but highly ambitious, totally apply, and rather experienced but more settled, totally apply. Both are great. So what typically is the most successful is if you've had some experience. So that goes from, so not going from undergrad straight into this program is usually not the most successful, and it's usually not quite the right time. Going straight, and have we had someone do this in every level? Yes. So these are not absolutes, but going straight from med school without residency into the program, that can be somewhat challenging unless you've had a lot of innovation background. So there's always exceptions to this. People do often have a PhD or an MD or a master's degree, but that's not the case for everyone. So if you don't have an additional degree, you might want to have more experience in real world, because that'll allow you to get the most out of the fellowship and contribute the most to the team. So for example, and these, don't hold me to these exact examples, just trying to give you some perspective. If you have an undergrad degree, but you've spent 3 years in industry, that may be really valuable without another degree. So think about that, but think about what makes your application the strongest and what allows you to stand out amongst others.
There's another question about how does this work, taking the projects forward if the IP belongs to Stanford. So typically what will happen is you develop a technology while you're here, that IP belongs to Stanford, you disclose it to Stanford and file a patent with Stanford. And then if you're going to develop it as a company, that company will come back to Stanford and negotiate typically an exclusive license to the company of the IP that you've invented. So you sort of re-own it through an exclusive license to the company. And Stanford is very favorable to startup companies. So most of the time you will reach an agreement with Stanford to have that technology licensed in exclusively.
Some people were asking about applying if you were at Stanford. That's perfectly fine. We don't give preference to people from Stanford or not from Stanford. If you are a Stanford student, there's also access to the graduate courses. If you're a Stanford faculty, there's also access to the Biodesign Faculty Fellowship. Those things are only for people who are either enrolled at Stanford for a degree or are faculty. So you can look on our website for those types of things. And that's what I have to say about that. I wanted to bring Antje back up so that she can talk about after the deadline, like what happens after July 28th, and when you could be invited for interview, when interviews are, and then also when decisions are, because we're quite a far ways out from our start date of August 1st, probably, 2026.
That's right. Thanks, Janine. Yes, a few questions we're touching on sort of the technical parts of the application. So you saw already that application deadline is July 28th. And as Janine mentioned, we cannot grant extensions, unfortunately. There's just too many applications to deal with, and we want to be fair to everyone applying. We take August and September to review those in detail. And by early October, the applicants will learn whether they're invited to interviews or whether they are not invited to the next step. By that point, or actually much earlier than that, you should actually set aside the specific dates for the interviews that are also on our website in the frequently asked questions section. I'm going to paste that in the chat right now. A lot of these details and questions we've answered right now will be coming up there again because the webinar is there's a lot of information right now. So the interviews are taking place early November, specifically, I believe November 6 and 7, if I'm getting that correct. 6 and 7, exactly. The entire day, Thursday, November 6th, the morning of November 7. So please set those times aside now. It's a big block chunk of time that you will be in the interview for. And usually it's 5 to 6 hours. And then by December 1st, we will notify everyone who gets into the fellowship. And then we have a short 8 months to get everything up and running and get you onboarded for an August 1st start.
I will. Oh, sorry. Were you gonna say something else?
I'm done.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to add something. Thank you, Auntie, to that timeline. If you need a visa, we will send you a questionnaire if you're selected for interviews, so that we can see if you can qualify for. We have certain visas that people can qualify for. So as soon as you're selected to potentially have an interview, we will send you a little questionnaire that we can send to the visa folks to review, to see if you are a candidate for the right visas that we have. I ask you to, it's very short, fill it out pretty quickly, get it back to us pretty quickly. It might have an impact on if you're able to interview or not. But we will do our best to, we try hard to get visas for all the different applicants we have, but sometimes there isn't just one visa that fits. So we need to know certain things about your past visa history in particular. If you've been on a visa before, there are certain limitations that are very specific to each one. So we'll ask you those questions specifically at that point.
And on the topic of applications, because I saw the question just come in, the interview block on Thursday, November 6th is, I believe, a set of 8 to 9 different interview rooms. All of our faculty, Innovation Fellowship faculty, will interview you, and the interview rooms, this is all going to happen on Zoom, and all the separate breakout rooms have specific topics, and it is an opportunity for us to get to know you and specific areas of interest and background, experience, and so forth. But it's also an opportunity for you to get to know faculty, to ask more questions of the fellows. There will also be a breakout room with current fellows, for example, or alumni fellows. I hope that answers the question on the interview portion of the day.
All right, going back to, go ahead.
I was just going to go through a couple of these. Yes, we help you find an externship. It is the responsibility of the fellow to secure that, but there is so much support in this fellowship. You never have to worry about being alone there. There is not on-campus housing, so you have to find that off-campus. Typically, some of our fellows live together and other things, but it's not typically an issue. And for people finishing degrees before you actually start the fellowship, but a year from the application, we take that as if you're going to finish your degree and give you credit for that. So while we can't presume the other things that you're going to learn during that time, include what you can in your application, and realize that every application's you're an individual. And so we look at you like you're an individual. We read every single word of your application. I can tell you that Dan and I both do, as well as a huge number of people who, and it goes through multiple levels of screening, which is why it takes so long. We have our alumni look, we have our faculty panels, and we really, really try to treat you as an individual. So realize that there isn't a specific formula, but it is what you bring to the table. And so just put your best foot forward, but truly do pay attention to all the essays and every word, because we really do look at them. Over to Dan.
Yeah, no, I think I was answering the similar question of what makes an applicant unique. So as Janine said, because every applicant is unique and we look at it that way, there isn't something that we would say, the question was, are there particular kinds of stories or qualities that help a candidate stand out? I would say in general, it's really, and it's the same advice we give to people when you come for an interview, is just be yourself. Like we want to get to know who you are, why you're doing this, how we can help you in your career, and what is specific about you, what has been your story to date. So just be honest, be transparent about what your life and education history has been to now. Let's see, anything, you're answering that one typing. Let's see. Was wondering what's the approximate acceptance rate. So overall, we typically get, I would say on average, about 150 applications a year. There's 122 people there were up to 122 people on this call. So I would say we're probably aiming for about the same number. We've had up to 200 applicants for 12 spots. So it gives you a little bit of a sense.
And then there was a question earlier about how many people do you interview? It's somewhere around 25 to 30. And they're virtual interviews, so you are not required to come here. And the reason that we do that is to give everybody an equal chance around the world to be able to be on the same playing field. We know that's not the ideal situation for many people to show off their skills, but it is the one we have. So
is it correct that there are 3 reference letters required? Yes. Do they need to be people you've worked with? Yes. Yes. Typically, we would like to have your reference letters be from people that have worked with you pretty extensively. So try to get, we try to see, what your CV is. If you've worked with somebody for 5 years, it would be probably important to have that person write a reference letter, somebody from that work experience, right? So we really want to know from the people who have had the most interaction professionally with you. Let's see. More of a philosophical question of how do you transfer skills? How do we teach it to others? That's a great question. I think a lot of us go into teaching afterwards. And so I wouldn't say it's a focus of the fellowship, because the focus of the fellowship is really trying to learn the process. And then if you're going to teach this process, it's good to get a little bit of experience with it. Like Janine or I have had some real life experience with companies. So I think that's very useful. But there is a strong leaning towards teaching within the fellowship, and you'll see that.
Absolutely. I wanted to answer this one. Will the same people, directors, alumni, review the application references and video? We actually have so yes and no. So the same groups do, but we have people review the entire written application with the references, etc., and then a separate group review the video. So the people who are reviewing your application never see your video, and the people who see your video don't see your application unless you are Dan or myself, and we can see everything, but they are not linked together. So nobody sees them together.
Yeah, we try to have different people judge the different aspects of your application. And as Janine said, there are multiple layers. So like every application will be reviewed by two different people who don't sort of talk to each other about your application. And then each sort of layer we go through, there's at least two people from each sort of layer of folks that review the application. So it goes through a lot of different hands and eyes.
Got a couple of minutes left, but what are the chances of an applicant with a non-STEM background? So it depends on why you're interested in this process. Are you a designer? Do you have interest in innovation? Do you approach this from a business angle? Tell us who you are. Like, we can't say, because we don't know who you are yet. So tell us who you are and why you want to do this and why this is going to be impactful for your career. And that could be from any background. But there's something that brought you here today. So I'm curious to know what that is and curious to know more. There's also some questions around like the interview process. So it's 3 days of interview, one in the evening, which is optional, and then there's multiple rounds with all of the faculty in kind of rapid fire succession. And then there's another interview the following day. So that's why it's like that. Video or essays are weighted. Just do your best on all of them. Some people do better on videos. Some people do better on essays. We're giving you all a chance. So just do your best. And we're really excited to see your application and your passion come through. So I think this has been a really fun webinar. I feel like we're all reading and like typing at the same time in rapid succession. So thank you so much to Antje and Cyan for also backing us up, since we definitely couldn't type all these or answer all of these live. But I hope that clears up some of the issues for you guys. There are also additional webinars with our alumni coming up. And then there's logged webinars as well. I mean, we did one for women physicians, and we've done some for international students that are available on the website as well. So you can look back at those.
Yeah, thank you for attending, and I will reiterate a little bit of what I'm hoping you get out of this, of the message from Janine and I. This is a unique fellowship aimed to help you develop your career in health tech innovation. We are looking for people who are enthusiastic about this, and we're not looking for we don't have a specific phenotype in mind. We want the creativity. We want this, we want you to be all different from each other, and that's why we answer some of those questions that way. It's true, like if you're not from a STEM background and you decide that you wanted to come into this for a reason, fantastic. Just tell us why, and we'd love to get to know more about that. You just need to tell us what that story is, because everybody's different is also why it takes so long, because we look at all of your applications in their entirety. You just need to help us understand who you are, how this fellowship is going to impact your career, and why you want to do this, because you're all different, and that's what we like. So thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this webinar and ask all of your questions, and looking forward to reading your applications.
Yeah, hopefully meeting you soon.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a good day. Bye.